What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Restoration Rundown podcast, the podcast that's dedicated to you, the restoration business owner. My name is Ben, your host, and I'm the CEO of Ironclad Restoration Marketing, where I help restoration business owners get more sales by getting their internet marketing right. Speaking of getting more sales, that seems to be an area of contention and an area of struggle for a lot of people out there, especially restoration world or any kind of home services. So today I thought I'd bring back a very special guest that we had on a few months ago, who is an expert in sales, but not in the digital marketing aspect. What her sales background is actually training up your teams on how to get sales, boots on the ground sales, how to increase your workflow with the traditional means mixed with the digital marketing means. She's the author of a couple books. She's an empowerment coach. She just released a book called What's Your Fuel, which we talked about on the podcast last time. And she owns a company called Sales Booster Solutions that does just that, boost your sales for your restoration business. She's worked with dozens of restoration businesses across the United States and really cool abroad, other countries. She's always traveling around. She's very hard to nail down. So we're really excited to welcome back Ricelli Mordecai from Sales Booster Solutions. Hey, there you are. Oh, the Doberman. She's got the name back up as well. And if you don't know, we talked about this last time. She has a really cool book, her first book, I think, that came out. It's in a personality assessment system called What Dog Am I? We talked about that a little bit. Ricelli, thanks for coming on. I know you're very busy. I really appreciate your time here, and I'm sure everybody else does. How is everything going?
Everything is great. Thank you for having me back.
No problem. And thank you for coming on. So just a little bit of your background for for anybody that did not tune in to the episode. It's been a few months now. I mean, time flies. It feels like it was just yesterday, right? But since then, I think I've seen you following you on social media. You've been traveling around the entire world. So walk us through a little bit about your background, and I'd love to hear about some of your travels and kind of what things you've been experiencing dealing with restoration business owners. I know you're not traveling for pleasure. I know this is work stuff, and I'm sure you fit a little bit of fun in there here and there. So walk us a little bit through what you got going on.
All right. So Ricelli Mordecai here from Brazil. I have been in sales for, 25 years. I opened my first business when I was in my teens as a direct seller for a company. Learned a lot from doing that. Learned that your numbers of what you do in terms of your pre-activity will determine your productivity. Later on in life, after studying fashion and marketing, I joined the restoration industry because I was the only person apparently in that area that could tell a fake Louis Vuitton from a real one. And because of that, 16 years later, here I am. A couple of years ago, after I released my first book, I was invited in by a big restoration franchisor to be their director of sales training. I replaced an outside consultant to do that. It was a fun time. I also acted as the VP of Business Development for offices from their first day until their biggest milestone, which usually took about a year and a half to 3 years to accomplish, help them to get the pipeline going and become a sales-driven organization. And for the past 3 years, after I opened Sales Booster Solutions, I have been working with restoration companies and owners doing exactly that, acting as their VP of Business Development. One of my clients has promoted me as a Chief Revenue Officer because of the big goals that he has for the organization that I'm helping him to accomplish. And I come in, I train people to be more productive, to be empowered by what they do, to find their emotional fuel, that substance that's linked to their primary personality type, that's essential for them to increase satisfaction and performance. And what that does is that it gets people who answer the phone to be pumped up about answering the phone and adding to the sales. It gets the technicians to see that they are part of something greater and that there's potential of growth for them. And it creates the win-win attitude for the whole company. So as my travels, yes, I have been to Europe working with a local restoration company over there. Recently, my gosh, it's been so long since we talked. I've been to Texas twice. I've been to Florida. I just came back from Denver less than 48 hours ago. I've been to Puerto Rico training a company. Wow. I have California. I have been to a lot of places. It's hard to keep track.
That's great. Yeah, it sounds like your Sky Miles are probably racking up a little bit. And from the sound of it as well, it sounds like you're going to be running out of room on your business card for how many titles everybody keeps giving you all the time. So,
That's fun.
the reason that I wanted to bring you on is because everything that we do in our respective, niche in businesses really boils down to building a solid foundation. And I was really dove into your sales master training a little bit, and some of the things that you are talking about is really just boiling things down to the core. You're breaking and stripping away all these barriers that people typically create for themselves. And I think that part of the struggles that a lot of contractors have are they kind of throw that kind of stuff to the wayside. They never reflect on who they are, what they're looking for, what the end result is, and really have a goal. They're just kind of going. And it's understandable. They're very busy. There's not a lot of time to really do that. But if you really want to scale your business and have an exit strategy one day, then you really need to get these systems and processes in place. And that's where somebody like you comes to the table, and why you're this really intensive, I think it's a 2-month intensive program that you've created called Sales Masters Training. We only briefly spoke about it and kind of got the gist of it the last time, but I was hoping today that you could give us a little bit of insight into what it is, who it is a good fit for, really, because in my opinion, everybody should use this. This goes beyond the restoration industry, right? This could be any business. And lately, we've been talking to a few guys that help restoration businesses get sold. And one of the big things that struck out to me was, I think it was somewhere around 85% of these restoration businesses, no matter how good they're doing profit-wise, are unsellable because they don't have these systems in place. They don't have these processes. So audience, I'm talking to you. If you are listening, and hopefully you're watching us on YouTube or LinkedIn or all the clip ups, I hope you get a takeaway from this as to taking a really hard look in the mirror from a business perspective and a personal perspective. So your 2-month program, it seems like it alleviates most of those problems, right? Guys like me, I can come in, we'll drive leads to your business, but if you want that perpetual lead flow, you want the processes and systems put in correctly to get those boots on the ground leads and train your teams properly on how to actually handle those leads when they come in. And you mentioned before answering your phone, that's where you come in. And from what I've heard, you are killing it. So if you will, you don't have to give away all the secret sauce today, but I'd like you to just walk our audience through what Sales Masters training is all about, what you aim to do with it, and kind of maybe some results that you've gotten. And maybe if you want, you can pepper in some tips and tricks for people who are tuning in as a little bonus.
Well, you know that I don't hold anything back because I'm so excited about helping people. And if this podcast can help people, that's what we're here for. But here's the reality. When I go into a restoration company and I ask them, who here is in sales? Less than 10% of the company raise their hands. And here's why, because people don't understand that to sell is human, right? And that we are always selling something. We are always, every time that a person A has a conversation with a person B where they start with a purpose and they want to drive some type of results, that's sales. And because your team doesn't know that or doesn't believe in that, there's a big disconnection between business development, sales, and the rest of the organization.
Yeah.
The other thing is that most of restoration companies, they focus on ops. They don't focus on the perpetual lead gen of relationship, of setting themselves as a subject matter expert, which is what will lead them to the growth that they want to experience.
Yeah.
So as I look at all of that, right, I'm telling them everybody here is in sales. That's why everybody has to embrace this message, right? So that's kind of like the first thing that I think about. And that's why I created Sales Masters. Now, at one point, part and components of Sales Masters was part of the onboarding system of the other brand for new owners. How many people that are not part of a franchise system, or that are but were not onboarded into having their whole team participate on something like that, could benefit from this idea that we're all in a sales business and our product is restoration.
Yeah.
Right? I think that that's a big thing. So 2-month program, my 2-month program. I go in and I spend a day with your team, and then we break that training down into 7 sessions that's taken over a period of 7 weeks. Why is that? How many times have you gone to a training, you leave that training all pumped up, and then life happens and you do very little with that?
Do I have to answer that? Because you're really making me feel bad about myself. We do these types of trainings for digital marketing, I think once a quarter, and we are so pumped when we leave. And it takes a special person. Fortunately we take a lot, but it does take a special person just to be able to leave that and actually execute and take action with all that. So you follow up that one day with 7 calls that goes over, I'm guessing like a 2-month period. So you really drive that stuff home, and it sounds like it holds people a little bit more accountable.
It does because they learn things, and then we have homework type of assignments that they can take out there in the real world and come back to report on that, right? So there's no escaping me. I tell them we got to do this together, and it also increased the retention of the material, which is so important. It's such an investment of money and time, which is also money. And if we expect that people, without having a driver to that initiative, will just go on their own and incorporate and remember all these concepts, that's not real, right? That's not what's going to happen. So that is how the training works. And the training is based on the 3 key components to communication, right? You need to have the willingness of your prospect. You need to have this emotional language, as I call for my book, What's Your Fuel? Emotional fuel, the substance that will produce the drive, and it's linked to each personality type. So each person has one, and a communication process, right? Without a communication process, what happens is, I ask people all the time, how many times were you talking to somebody and you're pretty sure you're both speaking English and the conversation went nowhere?
Yeah.
Or even worse, the person said to you, I'll let you know. And there's nothing that you can follow up on, I will let you know, right? So this training teaches people techniques and the process for leaving every conversation with a clear and tangible agreement.
It makes sense. I want to take a step back.
Yes.
We talked about this a little bit, but I think this is a really important point that we should talk about. And this, I'm assuming this is probably part of the foundation of your program. Talk to me a little bit about the emotional language aspect and how important or why you've even implemented this, identifying your personality type of the prospect to speak the language that they understand. Because in my world, and we talk about this a lot, it's, in sales, a sales 101, if you don't know who you're selling to, how are you going to sell them something, right? If you don't understand that you're dealing with people with catastrophic property damage a lot of times, and your language is not appealing to that. We talk about that with websites, what your messaging is going to be. Talk a little bit about how your book ties into that. And, I'm assuming that's part of why that book even exists in the first place.
It is. Well, let's be very basic with a concept. If you want to speak to Americans, you speak English. If you want to talk to conservatives, you speak in a conservative language. If you want to talk to liberals, you talk in a liberal language. If you don't speak the language of your audience, you cannot obtain their willingness. And without willingness, you can't push a message down anyone's throat, right? Judge Judy used to say, don't try to teach a pig how to sing. It doesn't work and frustrates the pig, right? Without willingness, you're not going to go anywhere with people. What is the emotional language? We talk about emotional fuel as this very unique substance that will drive performance, increase satisfaction. And each personality type, we talk about the 4 dogs on the last one, the Doberman, the German Shepherd, the Labrador, and the St. Bernard. They have different keywords that appeal to them. They have mannerisms that are linked to them, that when you speak in that manner, you get their willingness to then listen to what you have to say, right? I mean, how many people listening to this podcast are short and sweet and to the point, and why isn't she telling me exactly what I want to hear right away, because I don't have time for this?
Raise your hand.
People like that, right? Raise your hands over there, you guys, right? There's some people that's like, give me the bullet points. Walk me through, zigzag me through how you're able to get to that conclusion. Right? There are others that don't mind when you push them in a way that seems risky. Others avoid risks at all cost.
Sure.
That emotional language is important because each personality type has their own. And here's what we break it down. Personality type, motivation. Every personality type has a particular motivation. And motivation is the ability to move into action, right? That's the breakdown of the word. And in order for somebody to move into action, they need fuel. And that is when we bring in the emotional fuel component to it. But I'll give you a couple of examples. Talking to somebody that was about to leave the company and with that, a big book of business that they were going to be taking with them, and having that person then being so fueled by how the company is taking this direction of personal and professional development that the person's like, the sky's the limit. Here's where I'm going to stay, right? That is just one of the many examples that we have seen. Or the owner that was, that my way or the highway, and that understood that different people within his company needed different emotional fuels. And he became, and for lack of a better term, the only emotional fuel station in town that can give his employees what they need. And he's able to give people the motivation and the fuel for them to achieve their individual goals, and have those individual goals support the company's goals, right? You wouldn't want that can do all of that. So that's the idea.
Okay. No, it makes total sense. And I think that it's important to understand all these things that you've been talking about from a basic level and a fundamental level. So, without getting too crazy deep, I want to talk about, the communication process, not specifically like how you come in and remediate it, but I'm sure that you're finding a lot of trends when you're dealing with these guys or ladies and the owners of these businesses. What have you seen have been some of the gaps and some of the struggles that these companies have had with these communication process that might resonate with some of our listeners?
Well, the number one thing is that people are very reactive in our industry. Very reactive. We respond to disaster. And because of that, some of those organizations have become reactive in their own way of operating and dealing with people, right? They don't know that somebody is looking for a way to better themselves and eventually get promoted. And the owner or the organization creates a plan that kind of pushes that person out without even knowing that that's what they are doing. And then when something like that happens, it's like, what happened here? What could have we done differently, right? Sometimes that is what they are doing also with their clients or their referral partners, right? So creating this betterment overall is what allows companies to do just a bit better, moving in the direction where the owner doesn't even need to be there a lot of times because the processes are in place, right? Because we are managing a system and coaching people on how to work within those systems and not the other way around, right? So that makes a huge difference, Joe.
No, I love it. I mean, it just makes so much sense. And so what have been the biggest gaps, to back up a little bit with all of this, it goes back to, I know there's a reason that what you created this program, but in your experience, is there anything that just really just seems to be the same thing you're seeing over and over again? I know in my world it is. I know you mentioned, people are very quick to react. They're ready to move on to the next thing. They have that shiny new object syndrome. So outside of that, let's talk to people that are maybe new in the industry that you've dealt with. And I'm sure there's been quite a few, as well as businesses that are well established. What have you seen has been something that these guys are struggling with that they might get out of your program if they just tuned in?
A lot of missing opportunities for sales because people don't take on the sales role. That is the biggest thing that I see. I see an improvement in conversions when they do that. I'll give you guys an example. How many of you guys, when your ops team talks to an adjuster and the adjuster is very happy with your service, looks at that adjuster and says, are there any other problem files on your desk that you might need another set of eyes to take a look at for you, right? That is sales because you have a purpose and you want to drive some results. People don't do that. They hang up, then go into another call. You can miss opportunities with that. One of my clients, after Sales Masters, learning that, tried that just to prove me wrong because he was in ops, and he was like, now I am stuck with another $77,000 job, right? I'm like, oh, how sad, right? Another client of mine, same mentality of, connecting those dots and being less reactive and more intentional in each conversation, got a $7 million commercial opportunity.
Wow.
Right? So this is one thing that we see a lot is people are reactive. They are not intentional in their conversations, and therefore they miss opportunities for collaboration. Another one in collaboration internally, one of the things that is very common is that you have the sales department and then you have the ops department. Your business development is always out there. Ops doesn't even know what they do. There's such a big disconnect and a lack of purpose and engagement and support, right? And we talk about that. We talk about, this team here is the one that makes the phone ring, so you have a phone to answer, right? And we create that cohesive collaboration that is a challenge that most companies deal with. They don't prioritize relationship building with referring partners. And what happens is that when the pipeline is empty, what do we do now? What do we do? Right? Or a basic one, a lot of companies in our industry do not value their sales team. They think the sales team is just something that's there. It's a commodity. I'm going to pay when I have to pay, and I'm going to negotiate that. But ops is what's essential. Right. And they forget that without a pipeline and a funnel for engagement, you're not going to be able to grow your business.
Sure. Yeah, you can have all the systems and operations like down to a science, but if you're not getting any sales, then what's the point? So it sounds like everything, and I know this already. I'm going to pretend like I don't, but everything ties together completely. Operations is driven by sales, and I'm a contractor as well, so I understand that mentality completely. You're thinking in numbers and your overhead and your staff and all these different things that you have to control when you're getting these sales in, because that money goes out just as quick as it comes in. So it sounds like that, you kind of shed the light on a couple of reasons why sales is so important, but more so why every single person in your company is a salesman, right? If you have somebody that just answers phones, doing intake, you have people out in the field, you got boots on the streets, knocking on doors, building relationships. Every single person from the top down, you have to understand, is a salesperson. They are not only representing your company, but they're going to help you sell jobs, whether it's the quality of work or just the conversations they're having. So your Sales Booster Solutions and Sales Masters training, really, it sounds like just helps that communication barrier. All right. We had a little bit of a hiccup there. I can edit that out in post. I probably won't because
but anyways, so original.
We had a little Wi-Fi thing there happening, but we're back now. So thanks guys for tuning in. Maybe we'll cut in a little commercial for that 10-second break we had in there in the communication. So if you didn't hear, just a recap, talking about how important the sales process is for every person in your company, from the person that answers the phones. If you've got a bookkeeper, every single person that you're dealing with is in some respect going to deal with potential clients or even existing clients. It could be a referral source. So it's really cool that you implement those ideas into your training. And I think it's a good fit for anybody. So we talked a little bit before about the new guys, one of the barriers, and it sounds like, just missed opportunities. And that's huge. I mean, it's normal for us. I equate it to the same thing when we're doing search engine optimization and Google ads and Google business profile for somebody, and they're not picking up the phone during business hours. They're not answering the phone properly, or they're not returning voicemails immediately. They don't have a process to do that. They're swimming with their head barely above the water. And those are a lot of missed opportunities, not checking web contact forms consistently. So it's really nice to draw these parallels between the real world type of traditional marketing and just communication processes in your companies to the digital aspect of it and what people struggle with. And guys, if you're just starting out, it's a very easy thing to remedy, right? You can hire somebody like Ricelli or myself to help you with these sales, but you have to really get your own processes and really reflect on yourself and how you do things, or you're just wasting money and you're wasting opportunities. And, there is a good percentage, as lucrative as this industry is, there's a good percentage of people that don't make it. And that's consistent across the board because they don't have these processes in place and they don't have the right mindset. So I'm going to ask this question. I probably am going to get the same answer from you again, but let's talk to the people that are established, these vets in the industry, right? These guys that have been around forever. And I see them across the board in all the groups. Restoration Rebels there's a lot of the same people having the same struggles for years and years and years and years. So do you see any differences? We'll talk to a different part of our audience. Do you see any differences in the struggles that these guys are having, or do you kind of boil this down all to the same thing in the fundamental things that we talked about before that the new people are talking to? Is there any other struggles, that you see consistently with everybody that you're traveling around the world that, might resonate with them?
Yes, the struggle that I see with established companies is that they are fluctuating within a particular realm of number of sales that they have per year, and and they are not building new opportunities. They are not constantly filling their pipeline because they're like, this is what we can handle right now. And I usually mention to them that is just like having a plant and saying to a plant, I'm going to take a 2-month vacation. You don't need to die. You don't need to grow. Just don't die. I'll water you when I come back. Right? We know that
I like that.
doesn't exist. You're either growing or you're slowly dying. That's how business operate. I see an owner who is tired. I see a lot of that in established companies. An owner who is tired, whose vision has not been refreshed and improved in recent years, who is becoming more reactive again than anything else because now he has so many fires to put out. And when people's mind is tired, when the visionary no longer has a vision, a man without a vision will perish, right? We know that. Yes. And then we see that impacts the whole organization because people don't know who they look up to for growth, for betterment, for mentorship. People want mentors. It's amazing what people will do if they have the right mentor. They will do so much better. Usually those are people that will be, especially in our business, engaged in the times where you're expected to work 12 hours a day and know that their owner will say, when this stops, you show up when you're needed because of everything else that you have done, right? But we see a lack of personal and professional development within those companies because they continue to go back to reactiveness, and an owner or a leader who's just tired because they lost the vision of what they can accomplish. And a lot of times I've had those conversations where they say, I cannot even think about sales right now because of all the problems that I have with ops, and their conversions decrease. And when their conversions decrease, one company brought me in to consult, and I said, your problem is not that you need to produce more sales. Your problem is that you need to convert more, because right now you're at 53% conversion. The industry's averages is 70. And what's going to happen is that when you're not converting what people are giving you, they're going to stop giving it to you. Mm-hmm. And you're going to lose your book of business quite fast because of this reactiveness and this lack of vision and engagement. And that is one of the common things that I see in well-established companies.
I love the grow or die, what you mentioned there. I say, it's funny, is I say something similar when we're talking about that non-reactive type of mentality that you have to take when it comes to digital marketing, right? There's no such thing anymore on the digital side as a direct response type of marketing, right? Things take time to nurture. You talking about the plant, telling the plant not to die while you take a vacation. I mean, that is spot on. And I probably have talked about this every single podcast we've talked about, but we treat digital marketing the same. We think about it as a garden, and you can plant a garden. And if you stand there and say, well, my seeds aren't popping up, I need to do something different, you're never going to see any growth. You have to nurture. It's going to take people. It's going to take the right mentality. It's going to take tools. And it's going to take patience and time. The guys that I see, and it sounds consistent with your experience, that don't make it, or just barely make it, or never grow, they're just slowly dying, are the people that are reactionary. They're the ones that they get caught up. They go to a convention, they get an email, and they've got this new thing that's going to change the way you get leads. And they think that it's something that's going to have an edge against their competition. And it never works, because they're never really working on the things that are actually going to bear fruit at some point. So I thought that was really cool. I love that. Grow or die probably is going to end up being the name of this podcast episode. Maybe we'll get some more eyes on it. It really hit home for me. And so the other thing that you touched on just recently is, what I really like is, the need for having some sort of mentor. Leadership is so important in a company. And you said just that. If you have somebody that's on the top or in charge of something that's disorganized and just constantly having this inconsistent kind of attitude, well, that's only going to just trickle down to the rest of your company. And we recently had Michelle Blevins from CNR Magazine, and that's one of the most important things she said in all her years in the restoration industry. She talks to every single person out there, is that people are worried too much about competition and being competitive versus looking at these successful people as mentors or somebody that they can achieve to do what they're doing. And so in doing that, they're concentrating on how they can be better than that person or how this person is better versus having a communication or having this communication with them, having a conversation at these conventions, meeting everybody, joining these associations, meeting your competition, shaking hands, because we talk about missed opportunities. Well, if you're dealing with somebody in your local area that's a restorer and they're very big, there's a good chance they're very busy and that there's a good opportunities for you to build these relationships with them in a sales perspective and maybe get some work from them that they cannot handle at the time. But if you're not communicating and you're kind of just holding yourself up into a wall and galvanizing yourself against that communication process, you're going to have a much more difficult time, right? I hate, and in my contracting business, a little bit different. We're in commercial site development, but we don't treat anybody as competition. There's so much to learn from every different company and every different thing. And I think that's one of the cool things about your training, your sales master's training, is that it sounds like you kind of help break that barrier down from a lot of people. Now, back up again. We talked about, so you train teams, right? What about if, do you do different training for the owners, like a sidebar, like in a Zoom meeting, you have a little breakout session? Is there a difference? Do you break them apart, or do you bring everybody in the same room and kind of have that conversation? Because you mentioned visionary, and that's something that we try to operate our business in. We have a visionary, we have people that implement what they're doing, and that way I can keep my eyes on the prize and I can continue to grow and find new ideas. Do you differentiate that with your training, or is it kind of a case-by-case basis?
We definitely do, because when we cover personality assessment, we identify who the visionary is. That's the Doberman. Who the one, the mission-oriented, that will be more process-oriented, the German Shepherd. The dreamer, the Labrador, which often is the business development person, and the Saint Bernard, who is more of the nurturing one, right? The one that really is motivated by a cause and helping everybody. So when we come together and we do this session together, what that does is to allow people to understand who are the experts of each language within a company, right? And that helps a lot, because we say, when you talk to a client that's like this is the person whose natural ability to speak this language is, right? Because and what that does too, and I just came back from a day and a half of training in Denver, is that people start, as they learn the concepts, they start nodding and they're like, yeah, that's that person over there, that's this person here. And of course, afterwards, me and the key leaders have the discussion of what do we do now so that you can utilize this as a way to mentor people and to extract the best version of people that work with you, right? When it comes to the training, we have a training that's a one session for anybody that is interacting with clients, with vendors, with referral sources. And then we have a mini version for people that are more on the technical side, that just need to be immersed in the concept too, so that they can speak the same language within the office, right? And that is very, very exciting. And then we have breakout sessions where the conversation tends to be tailored more to each department and how people work, right? But definitely the owners, if they are going to be the mentors, they need to know what fuel to use with each one of their employees. So when that conversation happens, they know how to address that conversation with each employee. That's why we have something called the filter of success, where it's a tool that owners use, and I share with them and I teach them within the training of how to, every time somebody has a problem, use that as a way to eliminate the layers that might be preventing people from being successful at a particular project, right? So we use that too. So, and then the communication aspect of it, which is our peak model, the system to leave every conversation with a clear agreement versus this is what you have to do, and then 2 weeks later it wasn't done. right?
Right.
Because there's no method for follow-up.
So you're eliminating these mismanaged expectations that probably exist quite a bit. So
Quite a bit.
let's talk cheese. Let's talk results. Cause I know that, we talked about the different personality types. Maybe we got some people that wanted to get to the point. What have you seen, as far as results for companies? I mean, do you have any really special case studies that you'd like to share? If you're not convinced already that this is something you might need to want to think about implementing in your company, let's talk results. Do you have a specific case study you wouldn't mind sharing, and maybe some results that you've gotten recently?
We do. And what's interesting about that is that a lot of people share that their results was something that that some people found results that were not on the sales numbers,
Sure.
but prevented them from losing sales, right? Because of a way that they engaged with somebody. The other people saw higher productivity within their employees because their level of engagement within cross departments has increased. Everything that we do is quite interesting because one of my most successful trainings we did, and then 2 weeks later they had a big disaster. So that year their growth was something along the lines of 750%. And we're like, where do we get, yes. And then we're like, where do we associate that number with? Do we associate with the training? And what most of my clients tell me is the same thing. Without this, we wouldn't have been able to handle that because mentally and emotionally, my team had to be ready to tap into what they knew about themselves and their team, to work together, to allow opportunities to be open for them. We know that luck is when opportunity meets preparation. And this is what this training teaches every company: how to be prepared for opportunities, how to design their own opportunities so that when opportunity knocks, they're going to be lucky and get that. So $7 million in commercial jobs for one client after we did the training. The other client said that because of this training, they were able to save close to $2 million from a business development person that no longer wanted to stay with the company and decided to stay after that. An increase in productivity and increase in rates of conversion because now their team was properly trained. And we have so many stories. For the people that want the data, they will need to get on a meeting with me, and we're going to discuss some of that. But the biggest question that I ask people is, what is the biggest challenge that a training like this could solve for your team? What is the biggest disconnect that your team has? And I will say, if you're not converting over 70% of your leads, there's an opportunity for you within this training that people are going to learn how to convert more. If 50% or higher of your business is not from direct relationships, this training is going to provide you with that opportunity. And if you see that you're losing employees because people have been having bad experiences with management, this is the team for you to increase the retention of the employees and the level of satisfaction that people have within your organization. Because as Sir Richard Branson said, your first client is your employees. Without them, you cannot deliver on any metrics to anybody in any promises. So if you don't take care of the geese that lays the golden egg, or the goose that lays the golden egg, you're going to be on the cycle of hiring people, firing people, or having people leave. And that lack of stability in business development, that is insane because people like to do business with those they like and trust. Yeah. So you need to have that in your business development, but in your ops too, because when an owner has to go out there and extract water because he doesn't have technicians, and an owner is doing a job of somebody that's just starting off, that's a problem. And that's a problem in philosophy.
Yeah, absolutely. Grow or die. I love it. I keep
Grow
going back to it.
Grow or die.
To wrap things up. So obviously, if you're not sold and you're listening to this, you might not have been listening or whatever the case may be. But so let's say people want to check you out. How do we get in touch, and how do we get, how would somebody go ahead and schedule something with you to get the Sales Masters training? Really, how do we get in touch with you, Ricelli? Because I'm sure that there's people going to be chomping at the bit to talk to you about this stuff, because it sounds like you solve a lot of the fundamental problems with this training. It sounds comprehensive enough to break things down to the root cause. It sounds like you've saved plenty of businesses. I truly believe in the conversion metrics that you shared. We deal with similar things with digital marketing. And that's something we like to hammer home is if you're not converting, then your traffic means nothing. If you're not converting, then your ads mean nothing. Your budget means nothing if you're not converting. So we like to strip things down to the bare bones and kind of find out what's happening to get to know the client, much like you do on your Sales Masters training. So how do we get in touch?
LinkedIn is the best way to connect with me. I'm pretty sure Ben is going to put my LinkedIn link here, Ricelli Mordecai, Ricelli Mordecai. I'm the only Ricelli Mordecai in any social media platform, so you guys will find me. Facebook, since a lot of restoration owners have joined Facebook in the last 5 years, they're going to be able to find me over there too on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook on my personal page or on my professional page, Sales Booster Solutions. You'll be able to find me over there on Sales Booster Solutions, and then we can start the conversation. I offer 15-minute complimentary intro calls, and I usually suggest to people check me out first. Go to LinkedIn, see my recommendations, listen to Ben's podcast that we have done together, and then you're going to see, you're going to start seeing a few things that are interesting to you about my message. People that are on the Rebels, I know that there are a lot of Restoration Rebels here. Just search for my name within the little search bar in the Rebels group. You're going to see a lot of the things that I have posted or commented over there that have been helping people to make decisions of how to go with their sales approach, to look at the numbers, because I really focus on numbers when it comes to Sales Masters. I want people to understand that you need to have a pipeline that is designed in a way that you are going to get the numbers that you want. So I work a lot with creating those programs over there during the training for every company. So LinkedIn, Sales Booster Solutions on Facebook, or Ricelli Mordecai on Facebook too.
If you want, I added the link here in the bottom. If you're just listening to this on one of the millions of streaming platforms that we're on, pat on my own back, check in to the Restoration Rundown YouTube or the Ironclad Restoration Marketing YouTube. When we play this, you'll see the link to Ricelli's LinkedIn there, and we will be sharing all of this stuff on social media, including her Facebook link and her Instagram link. But you definitely need to check out what she's doing. We hear nothing but greatness, and we talk about mentorship and looking at somebody. If you do search her in the Rebels group, you're going to see that she's one of those people like John Isaacson, Michelle Blevins, myself, that is just giving and providing value to everybody. So pay attention. Don't turn a blind eye at it. I know you're getting bombarded every single day with different tricks and strategies and tips and people trying to sell you something. Start paying attention to the people that aren't going for the sale, that are actually providing value out there. And you should be doing the same in your business, but that's a conversation we'll have for another time. For now, that's it. Ricelli, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing a little bit about your sales mastery training. I hope all of you have got something out of this. And if not anything, you're convinced that you need to start reflecting on yourself and how your business is operating, and that, you need to treat your business a little bit better, because remember, if you can't just tell your business to grow and go on vacation, right? So Ricelli, thank you so much for coming on. We will talk to you soon, I'm sure. Until next time, thanks everybody for tuning in to the Restoration Rundown podcast.